so May is here, and I have a couple tips for everybody to start thinking about. So May, we do have a little bit of a season change. We're kind of getting out of springtime. All those big blooms are kind of getting done with. We're starting to see some fruit set. So what I want you to think about is starting to fertilize your citrus trees. So a lot of citrus trees are blooming early springtime, just as we start warming up, and now they're starting to set fruit. And that is a lot of energy for those citrus trees to be kind of putting out there. So what we need to look at is how to replenish all that energy, because the more you feed them, the more they're gonna feed you. So as we look at citrus, we try to find a citrus fertilizer, because citrus need a lot more minerals in their fertilizer. And if you didn't know, citrus really don't have really big tap roots. They actually have a lot of fine feeder roots. So as we're fertilizing citrus, we're trying to fertilize all underneath that canopy. And the rule of thumb with fertilizing is you water first, you fertilize, you mix in that fertilizer, and then you water again. And that is typical for a dry fertilizer. For fertilizers, I like to look at down-to-earth citrus and avocado fertilizer. This is a great fertilizer. They say to use it about once every 3 months. And what I like to do is use half as much, half as often. And it keeps it a little bit more stable for those plants. So take that recommended amount, break it in half, and use it half as often. That's gonna make sure that your citrus trees have enough energy to give you that nice, delicious fruit, and it'll keep it less on the sour side. As we're moving on into our gardens, it is a great time for melons. Melons are so fun, but one thing you do need is a little bit of space for all these types of melons. Melons get really big. And as we think about plants, as we're planting these types of seeds, is think about where these are gonna go. They're gonna wanna follow the sun. So wherever you plant a seed, look at where the sun is and expect that plant to travel that way. So instead of planting these seeds all the way in the back of your garden and they're gonna travel through the garden, plant them on the edge. And that way you know as they grow out, you can kind of tiptoe around them. As they're growing, they might go ahead and re-root in that soil around your raised bed. So for melons this time of year, what I like to look at planting is the Karachi melon. And this melon is a melon that grows really large. So if you have the space, this is a great one to plant. What's really cool about it, it also is powdery mildew resistant. So if you look back at last summer and you're like, man, I was dealing with powdery mildew, and you still want to plant some melons, look at the Karachi melon. The melon is actually going to be semi-round, so it's actually going to be kind of like more of a pumpkin, and it's going to be kind of like a honeydew. But the inside is going to be super creamy and soft as it ripens, and the flavor is one of its own. So for melons, I would look at the Karachi melon. The other type of melon I like to plant are watermelons. The reason why I like to plant watermelons is because as they're growing, I always find more watermelons than I expect to find, because the watermelon itself is kind of hidden by all the leaves. So I look, I'm like, oh, I have 4 watermelons, this is great. And then 2 days later, I look, I'm like, wait, there's actually 8 watermelons here. And these are from Renee Seeds, and this is called an Icebox watermelon mix. So you're gonna get all different types of watermelons, so it's gonna be a fun surprise later down the road. And when you plant melons, especially watermelons, you try to plant multiple plants together. Don't plant just one plant, maybe plant 3 seeds. That way, if one doesn't make it, you at least have 2, but 3 seeds minimum, and give them some space. They also are heavy feeders, so make sure you're keeping up with your fertilizing and that chicken manure or worm castings. So also in May, let's talk about a dirt bath for your chickens. Chickens actually like to get dirty. They don't want to be nice and clean. They don't need shampooing. They actually like to roll around in the dirt. And you actually might already have this happening in your chicken coop. As we start looking at chickens, we want to think about how they can get dirt into their feathers. So sometimes we put down a nice hard surface like decomposed granite. Sometimes we might have a little bit of a cement surface that our chickens are on. What they really want is something light and fluffy they can fluff themselves into. So one thing I like to add to those holes is agricultural sand. And what that is actually a wash sand. So it's a very clean sand. What's nice about sand, it's small particles. If it gets wet, it's not gonna really clump up. And what's really cool about it, if your chickens do poop in it, it's kind of like a litter box and you can kind of scoop it right out. So in those holes, adding a little bit of agricultural sand. Another thing I like to add to that sand is diatomaceous earth. So even when I heard of diatoms, I'm like, what does that mean? So what that actually is, it's fossilized pieces, and think of it as glass, really small particles. And this is actually food grade, so people use it on dogs in their backyards, and it is something fine for your chickens to fluff themselves in. So as they're fluffing themselves in the sand, it's keeping them cool. It's giving them a little bit of dust, which is good for their feathers. The diatomaceous earth is there to kind of help keep mites and fleas at bay. And all these things are just great things for them to kind of bathe themselves in. If your chicken coop doesn't have a little hole that they've dug out, what I like to do is I like to get a big black tote, something that's almost about 1 foot deep. I love to fill it up with sand. I fill it up about 3/4 of the way. I'll add that diatomaceous earth in, mix it all together, and give this to them as a bath. The reason why I like a black tote is they're easy to clean, they're not gonna break in the sun, and they're there for a really long time. If you have to move it around, if you have a small coop, you put it in for a day. After that day, you take it out. So it's just something nice to offer your chickens, especially as it warms up. It keeps them nice and cool. So for May, there's a lot going on in the garden. So if you have any other comments or things that you're doing in your yards and you'd like to share, definitely comment below. Even better, come in and talk to us. We always love to hear what you're doing.